We're rolling. Timer starts now. Mark. Hi, I'm Ford.
And I'm Sky. And these are not our real names. These are our superhero names, and with our powers combined, we formed the writing partnership L. Skyford. Welcome to Booklandia.
Today, we're going to review a book, most likely a romance. But before we get much further, did you know you can watch our faces do this episode by subscribing to us on Twitch at L. Skyford or YouTube at L.Skyford? You should really do it. We give good face.
And sometimes there's a dog bomb at Ford's house.
This is true. For our other socials, you can follow us on Twitter at SkyfordL, on Instagram at L.Skyford. And if you're interested in our book, blog, or even more book reviews, head over to our website, lskyford.com.
Lastly, this and every episode are chock full of oversharing and spoilers, and every episode is rated E for explicit. You have been warned.
Hello, 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 hello.
Hi. Okay. All right. We're doing it like that. It's totally fine.
It's a 2 or 3-fold reason. It's been a long time since you and I have sat here to talk about a book. It's kind of early in the morning for me, and I'm under-caffeinated, so everything will be in song today.
Excellent.
Not everything, I'm just kidding. Just that bit.
Just that bit. Okay, well, good. We will definitely expect more song.
Please do. So that's me. How are you?
Yes, I am also good. So I'm actually going to take up before we get to the check-in, we're going to talk about It's Been a Pleasure, Noni Blake, but today by Claire Christian. And then
we are.
so we're going to talk about Noni Blake. It's Been a Pleasure, Noni Blake by Claire Christian. I'm going to refer to it as Noni Blake before we get to that. And instead of my check-in, I would like to introduce a new segment. And it's not really a new segment because we've already done this before, but now the segment has a name, and it is the Correction and Apology Parade. Yes, please imagine trumpets or whichever brass instrument is your parade brass instrument. But yes, so the Correction and Apology Parade's intent is basically for me to be like, we said this, and turns out I was wrong. Or I thought this, and I've since learned that this is not correct. And I want it to be a parade because we do not celebrate apologies enough. We do not encourage each other to unring certain bells. And
we don't make a safe space for apologies.
We don't make safe space. It feels like if we apologize, then something terrible is going to happen. And I don't ever want anyone to feel like that, because I think there is power in corrections and apology and learning. And this is my apology and learning moment as well. So here is the Correction and Apology Parade for today. A couple of episodes back, we reviewed To Love and to Loathe by Martha Waters. Sorry, I don't know. Martha Waters was something that my brain was like, that's not right, even though I know it's right. I have no idea why I hesitated. So we reviewed this book and we talked about it for 45 minutes. You are welcome to go listen to that episode. And after that, I was in the Instagramiverse scrolling through, and someone in the Instagramiverse, which by the way is probably not a word, pointed something out to me that completely escaped my notice. And the reason why it really struck me is A, because it's absolutely true, and B, because I had blinders on for this, despite the fact that I am part of the queer community that it was addressing. So here's the thing. There's well, I was going to say spoiler alert, but we already did an episode and we already told you there's spoilers. There's a lesbian character in To Love and to Loathe, and that character's disclosure of their sexuality is what prompts our lead heterosexual characters to come together. Moreover, every time that character's sexuality comes up, it is outed by a straight character rather than disclosed by the lesbian herself. And that kind of plot, like using a lesbian storyline as a plot device and then not having that character have any other bits or pieces is really
Mhm.
toxic to queer characters everywhere. And it is literally her entire existence in this book is literally to drive the heterosexual characters together. And so instead of being inclusive and modern and showcasing the different types of love, this actually did a terrible other. And I missed it entirely. We talked about the fact
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
her lesbian discovery is a plot device, but it it was completely a blind spot for me
Mhm.
that could be so toxic and so negative. So here is my correction and apology for not pointing that out in the first place, for not seeing it in the first place.
Sure. So we know that the 3rd book is not about this lesbian character, but if there was a 4th book about this lesbian character, whose name I cannot remember, I can't remember anybody's name because I read that book months ago, um, would that alleviate some of the toxicness?
I think it the the fact that she's a prop in this book would still stand. It would
Sure.
definitely be a greater step in allyship to present her
Mhm.
story, yes. And she could be, she could flesh out and become more three-dimensional. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
But that doesn't change that she was a prop.
Yeah.
She was a prop. And there
Yeah.
are plenty of people as plot devices or people as props in um romance, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't point it out. So it isn't right.
Absolutely.
So that's
Right.
really all I'm saying is that there's this thing that we read and that we did not bring to anyone's attention, including our own, for me in particular. And reading that analysis, I immediately saw what
Yeah.
the issue was, and the fact that in my in my privilege, right? In my privilege
Mhm.
insofar as it's 2021 and my career status doesn't necessarily preclude me from a normal life.
Mhm.
I was just like, sure, of course this lesbian story can be a side plot
Mm.
as opposed to like, oh, this is actually really terrible and should not be like that.
Yeah. I'm really happy that the book we're talking about today is queer and
Yeah.
bisexual. So that is I'm very excited for that. Uh I and in reading so much romance the past year, I've come to appreciate only recently how it has made me a better ally. I am more empathetic for having read so many like, voices, authors, characters that are not white like me, and I feel like romance currently has some of the most diversity of any of the genres that we read for sure. I know YA is really working hard on their diversity, so, like, it's I find myself being more empathetic out in the world because of the books that we have read. And it obviously there's still plot holes and there still are societal Stockholm syndrome and patriarchy and uh oppressions all around, and I'm glad there's still room for us both to grow. And so thank you for your apology parade. I applaud the entire time it passes by.
Yay. Thank you. I really like societal Stockholm syndrome. That's a really concise description of what happens to us here. Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of how I interpreted what you described. You're like, "Oh, yeah, this is how my queerness happens out in the world," so it makes sense that that's how what her experience in the book is. So, yeah, societal Stockholm syndrome.
Very, very, very good. Yes. All right.
Thank
On
you.
that note, we're gonna conclude this segment and move back
Wow,
to
wow. There we go.
it's been a pleasure, Nani Blake. Mostly because
Whoop, whoop,
I have
whoop.
been talking about this book for 2 weeks, and I'm pretty sure you were gonna friend divorce me if I didn't stop. And then made you read it,
You
and so there we are. Here we are.
you saw that face?
Ah,
So, this is true. The first week you came to book club and you're like, "OMG, WTF, this book is fantastic." I was like, "Yeah, okay." Because I think I've been in a book slump for, like, 2 or 3 weeks. I've just been, like, not impressed, not enjoying, and then the second week you came to book club and you're like, "Noni Blake, you guys, come on." I was like, "Oh, we're still on this? We're still doing this? It's still on our to-read list for book club? Man." And then I picked it up so that we could talk about it this episode, and you were fucking right, and I bow down to you, queen who knows everything. This book
that
is the best.
this is a 5-star book for me, and this is
Mm.
how you know books are 5-star for me. If I can't shut up about it for 3 weeks, then like
Yeah.
that's the flag for like maybe this is a significant book in my world. All right,
Mhm.
shall we tell the universe in 30 seconds what the book is
Yeah.
about?
Do you
Would
wanna
you
do it? You
like
want
to?
me to do it?
Oh wait, sorry,
I
I
don't
always point the wrong way. Sure, I can do it. Let's because I haven't done one in a while. So let's. I did
Okay.
write this blurb, so hopefully I didn't make really terrible trip up moments for myself. So would you like to count me in?
Absolutely. Alright. You're gonna read it in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
All right. Nani is processing the end of a 9-year long relationship, but can't seem to move on. When the opportunity presents itself, to chase an old flame, Nani's adventure take her on an exploration that is both a physical and an emotional journey to rediscover that what pleasure means to her, where it is rooted, and why Nani felt that she had to deny it to herself. On the way to self-discovery, she meets Lil, Bo, Zep, and takes a really close look at what society has led her to believe will be best for her.
Eh,
Ah, almost.
so close.
So close indeed.
Yeah. So
Um,
this book came out earlier this year, February 23rd, 2021.
That's the American release. I believe
Oh,
it came out well, maybe not. I don't know. The author is Australian. Claire
okay.
Christian is an Australian author and playwright. And I definitely know that there's a different cover for the Australian edition. So here is the American cover. Um,
Yes, which you have thoughts on, I believe.
I absolutely do. Let me clear that. I absolutely do. So here is so the cover is of a woman lying on a beach towel with her top off sunbathing. And it's lovely and wonderful,
Mhm.
except uh Nani never does that.
Yeah.
She never goes to the beach to sunbathe topless on a beach towel. She does go to the beach, but it's winter time and she's fully nude. So
Mm,
I feel
mhm.
like a bunch of stuff is misleading about that cover because it totally looks like a beach read. Like you go to the
Yeah,
beach and sunbathe and read this. And honestly, read this. I mean, stop.
right.
Well, don't stop listening to us, but when you're done listening to us, read this book wherever you are.
Yeah.
But what is on the, oh man, this right here
You got it.
does not happen in the scope of the book, and we've now read a bunch of books that do not
Mhm.
happen the way that their covers lead us to believe.
I also wanna point out who puts a flower in their hair facing away from them.
Well, if
Like,
you
you
put
always
it the
tuck
other
it
way,
behind your ear.
it's gonna hit the towel. So that part actually makes some sense. I have definitely
That
worn a
makes 0
flower on the
sense.
side of my head rather than on the front.
But it's pointing back. I can't I have a problem. My OCD brain cannot handle this. flower situation.
So
Sure,
I think it's a fun
topless,
cover.
sunbathing, but
Right. It's
yeah,
gonna get some
yeah.
people to pick up the book, even though
Mhm.
that's not what the book is about. And that's sort of the point of PR, right? But it like it goes on my list
Right,
of so many books we've now talked about whose covers do not reflect the actual book.
right,
So
content, yeah.
yeah, the content is not quite that. All right. Should we get into some questions then?
Let's question each other.
Okay.
Interrogation time. Here we go.
So Nani leaves home. So Nani lives in Australia. She's an Australian. And her best friend Lindell, who by the way is an amazing best friend, uh
Yeah.
tells her to get out and to go on this
Uh-huh.
adventure to just clear her head because she has been stuck in an emotional rut for 2 years in the wake of her breakup. So she leaves home to
Mhm.
find herself. This in trope land, this is the vacation romance trope because
Mm,
she goes
mhm.
on a vacation and she finds romance. She also finds herself,
Could
which I feel like is also a trope we've read before.
could this also be hero's journey? Because the
Yes,
hero
absolutely.
has to physically go on a journey.
Yes, it
Yeah.
it absolutely can. But I think in romance that's called holiday holiday romance as opposed to
Sorry, holiday thank you,
yeah,
thank you, thank you.
as
Let
opposed to
me pull
hero's
it out of
journey.
the literature. Yeah,
Right,
okay.
right. This is not The Hobbit. Uh,
Okay.
so
Well,
she literally leaves the comfort of her home. Do you think
mhm.
that physical distance is important for perspective? Both, I mean, yes, obviously it's important to Nani, but is it important for you? Is physical distance from what you're doing important for
Oh.
you?
Uh, n no, because for me to have a large emotional shift or mental shift in thinking of something, I need to be comfortable as well. So I understand why Nani did it because she needed to leave all of the responsibilities that were weighing her down. Her job, her bills, her like showing up for people responsibilities and do something that was purely selfish for her. Um for me, I have found ways to just be purely selfish in my day-to-day life and to have these mental journeys, personal self-growth from the comfort of my reading chair or, surrounded by the people who I am comfortable having hard conversations with. So, I like safety in my personal growth. What about you?
I do think that to gain perspective, something has to change. It doesn't necessarily
Mhm.
have to be a physical distance. That definitely serves as a very easy metaphor for reflection. So also I have wanderlust like a crazy person. I want to be not here a lot and it's not because I don't love it here, but it's because I love the experience of
Mhm,
others and
mhm.
other spaces, other people. And for me, the lack of safety, the necessity to discover things that I have not discovered before is actually the more likely growth process. In safety, I become really docile. So
Mhm,
I
mhm.
do need that. I need to be on the precipice of some cliff metaphorically to have my life metaphorically flash before my eyes.
Wow, that's intense. That's very intense, and I feel a certain way about it, which is uncomfortable.
Okay.
But I would say for Nani, her wanderlust, her trip is propelled by a list of people she's going to well, a certain person she's going to Europe to find again to see if they still have a connection. So, the distance wasn't necessary for perspective. It was, motivated by finding Molly and seeing if they still connected. And I think the perspective and the pleasure cruise, as I call it, because pleasure cruise is just a phrase stuck in my head, um, was the result initiated by a list, which you guys know I love a good list. I love a list. I have 3, like, in reach right now. Ooh, maybe, like, 7 lists.
I also love a good list, so that did speak to my organizational brain as well. Yes.
Mhm, mhm. So Nani's, I feel like, only able to go on her pleasure cruise because she ends up with a surprising and, a very large amount of money that she wasn't expecting, from the sale of the house she owned in her previous relationship. Do you feel that money is the only thing that can allow this sort of indulgent pleasure journey that Noni went on? And is this a class-based experience that she had?
So, I mean, I do think that like the particular adventure she had and the particular bits of her brain that she got to let go of are supported by the presence of money. However, I would say that she sort of points out to you that she does not regularly have massive amounts of money and that she
Mm,
does spend a lot of time thinking about her bills or how she's going to support herself. So, um I feel like this is a windfall, right? Like this is the first good
yeah,
thing that has gone well for her in 2 years, as opposed to being like there is I can think of other books where it was like, and then the very next day I'm on an airplane to Paris with
yeah.
right in a first class seat, right? And you're like, wait, how is that even possible? Like no one has that kind of, well, not no one, but my life does not have that kind of money and it's really hard to relate. I found it easier to relate to Nani, and maybe this is my middle class blindness too, because she didn't have the option to do this until this singular
Mhm.
plot event happened. Um
Yeah.
so for me, so she also does a lot of what she discovers actually doesn't cost a massive amount of money. And there are times in the book where she does things to save money. So I
Mhm.
don't necessarily feel like it was throwing
I just
green
there
around.
just a There was a lot of moments where she's like, "I went into the store and bought the whatever I wanted, and I spent an outrageous amount of money on this lingerie, and I bought this clitoral stimulator, and I ate and drank," and, like, I'm just like, when I'm on vacation, there's still a budget, but, like, so I don't know. I also, as I was reading, I was like, "Oh, Australia must be great because she's a teacher and she just left for 6 months, and it was totally fine, and her job was still there when she got back." And I'm like, "That would
I
never
mean,
fly in America."
that was amazing. Yes, that they were
Yeah.
like, "Sure, go away for 6 months and we will hold your job." But I do think that that has to do with the amount of value that this country places both on teachers and on time off.
Mhm. Yes, correct. So, that was an amazing part of the book. I remember I'm only just now connecting to how flabbergasted I was at that moment alone. And then she, like, packs up all of her stuff into a storage unit. I'm like, "Moving is exhausting. We could do more than 2 sentences about that."
Maybe she didn't
But
maybe she didn't
yeah,
have a whole lot out, right? Because she's sort of been
yeah,
she's living in this apartment because she has
it's
to.
true.
It is a post breakup apartment, and so maybe she only
Good
has
point.
her bare necessities out, and she packs up her
Mhm.
clothes to go with her, and then she packs up whatever she got out that isn't
Whatever's left.
perishable
Yeah.
into a storage unit. So I actually really bought that it took her so little time to pack up because it was the physical representation of how little was holding her in Australia.
Mm. Mhm. Mhm. It it's just I can't imagine, okay, I can imagine, but, like, not everybody can just not work for 6 months and to have a soul-changing experience. And so
That's true.
that's sort of the I want that sort of experience personally, and I want that sort of experience for everybody, but you have to have a windfall to do it, which is just kind of a bummer.
Yes, you do. This book does address how to find joy within yourself, but
Mhm.
it does not tell the story of someone who is finding joy in everyday moments. But I do think that you can
Yeah.
extrapolate it from because
That's the epilogue that
that is
doesn't
the
isn't
epilogue.
there.
Right. Extrapolate from the loveliness that is all around you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so my next question has to do again a little bit with marketing and PR for this book and how upsetting it was for me to read this PR. And
Mhm.
I wish that we wouldn't. Moreover, so the first 30% of the book, Nani is not a very likable character to me. She puts herself down a lot. She puts herself in a lot of situations that are not good for her emotionally. She
Mhm.
she puts herself in sexual situations in which the only reason she's having sex with someone is because she thinks that sexual desire from others is validation, and she
Mhm.
lets the negative voices in her head really impact how she sees herself, how she thinks other people validate her. And I mean, she gets some good sexual interactions from it and some bad ones, but it's not a healthy character. And so my question is sort of twofold. And the first part of that question is whether or not we need characters to behave badly towards themselves in order for us to
Mhm.
have a really extensive character arc and to really connect to their journey. Because like there are people out there who DNF this book at 30% because Nani was
Mhm.
so difficult to read up until that point. And I was kind of in that boat too. I kept reading and I'm very glad I did. But the first third of the book is kind of like, oof, Noni's having a bad time and I don't know how she's gonna get out of this. And then it turns. So that's my part one. Part one is, do we need to tear down our characters in order for them to come back up? Part two of my question is really it's really like a yes or no. So in the PR for this book, what the descriptions were is that Nani is a hot mess bisexual. And turns out
Oh,
that's
yes.
like a
Okay.
term that is
Uh-huh.
used in romance to describe people. And I have never read a descriptor that said so and so is a hot mess straight person. Right? Like that's not
Mhm.
a thing. Like either there is already an assumption that all straight people are a hot mess. Sorry, not sorry. Uh or like is she a hot mess because she's bi? Because that's very wrong and let's never say that again. Um is she cuz it's a singular it's not a sentence, a half sentence. Hot mess bisexual is like a title, not she's a hot mess, comma, she's bisexual. No, the two are tied together. And I just want to know, are all bisexuals a hot mess? Because I got some stuff to do then.
Well, I only really know one, and I don't believe this person identifies as a hot mess all the time, but maybe occasionally you do. Um,
I mean,
so, hot but hot mess bisexual is not a romance term. It's a lexicon. It is out there in the world. People say. It's not just in the
people
romance
say,
world.
who are these
People
people
say hot
and could they stop?
I believe it's young people, and I've usually heard it in, like, self-identifying terms. Like, it
Okay,
started
but
out being hot mess. Like, I'm just feeling like a hot mess, and then somehow bisexuals got tagged onto it, but, like, there are people out there who are like, I've rolled into work a bunch of times being like, "I'm kind of a hot mess today, you guys. Sorry, not sorry about it."
I mean, so I guess it sort of goes to the inner voice, the
Yeah.
tear yourself down inner voice, which
Yep.
we're in there sort of. We're gonna talk about the inner voice that we
Yeah,
use
you
to tear
gotta let
ourselves
me
down.
answer part 2 of your
I
question.
know, but
But yes.
part one is just I just want it out there that maybe don't label people with
Yes.
derogatory terms or negative terms, because maybe it's not nice. Not maybe. Definitely not nice.
Sure. I would challenge you to describe, first section of the book, Nani. How would you describe her?
Um, she is self-deprecating and she's going through an emotional low.
Too many words for the back of a book. Too many words.
Well, apparently. She's not
Yeah.
a hot mess though. She shows up for work every single day. She has
Yeah.
consensual relationships.
Mhm.
Yes, she drinks, but she is not a blackout drunk. Not that any of those necessarily make you a not good person, but in terms of like responsibilities and following through on
Mhm.
them, she is following through on all of her responsibilities.
Yeah.
She's just not living a fulfilling life doing it, but that is not that's not what a hot mess is.
So, it sounds like in this current statement that there's the problem it's the problem of the erosion of the term hot mess. 'Cause
Yes.
when I've said it recently, I've shown up for work, I'm wearing clothes, I'm fulfilling my responsibilities, but internally, I have dropped tea on myself. My socks are mismatched. Like, I am living outside of my comfort state of organization or whatever, and I feel like a hot mess, and so I'm like,
And I
"Guys."
think this is truly where my issue is. It's not that someone
Mm,
labeled her a hot mess. It's that someone labeled her a hot mess. If she self-identifies as a hot mess, or if you
sure,
do, absolutely, you
sure,
get to feel however you
great.
feel. And if your descriptor for what's happening to you because your socks are mismatched is hot mess, then that's great. When my socks are
Yes.
mismatched, I self-identify as a person wearing socks. So like I don't care. But my issue is that that title was thrust upon her by people who wrote the back jacket, and I
Sure.
disagree
Good point,
on her behalf.
good point. Great, excellent. So part 2 of your question
Yes.
part 1 of your question. Um, do we need to tear characters down to lift them up? Well, the character has to have a character arc, so there has to be growth. I I want to say that I felt that Nani was very toxic to herself for the first 10%. I didn't think it was 30%. I think after the 10% mark, it kinda started to lighten up a little bit. So for me, it wasn't quite so intensely I began to connect with her after that mark. But this entire book is about fighting that dark inner voice inside yourself, because it was happening even in the last third of the book after, the black moment after her trip was over, she was still telling that voice to shut the fuck up. And so it to me, the journey wasn't just what happens in the book, it's it's about the continuous journey of telling that dark inner voice that you get to think those things and say those things, but I don't have to listen to you, and I don't have to put stake in what you're saying, and I'm gonna choose to listen to the other voice and follow where it leads. So, I think we had to listen to that voice, that toxic voice, in order to appreciate when Nani made the better choices for herself.
Did I make you do some emotional heavy lifting in that? What's happening?
Yeah, a little bit,
Okay.
but, like, I mean, this whole quarantine has been that journey for me too. Like, I've had some really dark inner voices, like, darker than they've ever been before, and I've had to really tell them to shut the fuck up because they don't know jack shit. Um, and and I'm, continuously working through my own self-worth, and I think I'm still in a place where I need to identify that negative voice, because I think my negative voice is very insidious in that it's very logical. It's like, and so I have to figure out when to shut it up. I'm still working on it. I'm still mid Nani. Hey, Nani Nani.
Perfect.
Um, okay, so the romance portion of this book, eventually Nani meets a Scottish tattoo artist. These are all the buzzwords that I like, who is described as a Viking, like, my god, okay. And his name is Bo. Bo has his shit together. He's gone to therapy. He has like a very clear idea of himself and his path and his feelings. Uh, and he really guides and grounds Nani. I felt they were very much opposites attract in their uh emotional journeys, in their mental and emotional growth. Do you think so throughout the book, Nani made choices in attempts to be cool to Bo or to impress Bo with her chillness. Do you think that that helped or harmed her in her journey? She was
I
always comparing herself to how cool he was and what would Bo do or what is he gonna think if I did this?
So I guess I did not take those thoughts and comparisons as trying to impress him so much as
Mm,
realizing that he could be a good barometer of decision making for her, that he could be the the angel on the other shoulder, if you will. So I never thought that anything she did had anything
mm,
to do with impressing him. There were some things that
mm,
I thought she did that had to do with him, but, I yeah, she went, like, particularly so she meets him in Edinburgh, and then she goes to Amsterdam after they initially hook up, and then she hooks up with other people, and she finds other discoveries that are meaningful to her, that and yes, she has conversations with him, and yes, she keeps in touch with him, but he isn't really the motivator, which is one of the big points in the book, is that her self-worth was so dependent on other people's reaction to her for so long, and then she reclaims that and believes in her own self-worth before she comes
mhm,
back to Bo and tells him what she needs. So to me,
mhm,
none of her activities were to impress him, except for maybe show a brave face in the tattoo parlor when she first meets him.
mm.
To me, she was using, like, in the moments when it became too overwhelming for her in her being and in her journey, she would like douse herself in his self-confidence.
See, I disagree. There was so much conversation about his coolness and her self-comparing him or her comparing herself to his coolness. And that is something that really resonates with me. Like as a younger person, being cool was the ultimate. And my dark inner voice was like, "You're not cool enough for this. You're not cool enough for these people. Dress more cool." And so I really heard her insecurities whenever she brought up how cool he was versus because in my mind it's like, "Oh, look how cool Bo is. I'm not that cool."
Right, but I guess so
So
my
I
question is,
I
what did she do? Yes, she had those thoughts, I absolutely agree, but I don't
mhm.
think anything she did was to impress him.
I there in the moments that I have vague recollections of, it's what she chose to say and not say. She was making choices about how to express herself to him, with him, that and perhaps impress him was not the right thing, but her actions were being driven by her comparing herself to him.
I would agree that there's a miscommunication between them about their intentions towards each other, and she chooses not to be open and honest with him because she thinks that he's not interested in a long-term relationship, and so she convinces herself to not pursue one with him despite the fact that
Well, I
she's
think
interested in a long-term relationship.
I don't think she was at that point. I think she convinced herself that she wasn't when she before she left for Amsterdam.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm talking closer to the black moment because the
Oh,
black
I
moment
see.
is sort of the fact that she didn't talk to him, right? That she doubted herself
Yeah.
and her communication wasn't open enough. But that's
Well,
still
she thought she had to go back. She thought she had responsibilities she had to go back to and that this couldn't continue. That's how I read.
yes.
So apparently this book has layers.
Of course it has layers. Yes, no, she absolutely right. But there, I think there's two things. She has to go back because she has responsibilities, and also whether
Mhm,
or not each one of them is willing to continue their relationship long distance, right? And
mm,
there are passages where she's like, he clearly doesn't want to do a long distance thing, so I'm not
mhm,
gonna pursue it. And then we
mhm.
find out in the black moment that she didn't ask him. She just
Yeah.
layered what she thought he was going to say onto his persona, and all she had to do is ask. So that is, I think, the only time where she's sort of like she did something based on her assumption of him. For me, is that she
Mm,
assumed his emotional headspace, and then
alright.
she put herself in the same emotional headspace.
Agree to disagree.
That's fine. Yeah.
Great. Okay, great. Shall we press on?
Yeah, absolutely. My next question has to do with so her self-discovery has a lot to do with living in her body and feeling joy, physically feeling joy in her body and in her and sort of emotionally then following through with that joy. And to me the clearest physical moment of that is when the photo of the two of them is revealed and she
Mm,
sees like she physically outwardly sees the woman that was experiencing pure joy, and she can like pinpoint and identify and be like this thing is
mm.
joy in its purest form, and now I know what that feels like. So like grand statement question, how do you know, do you have that moment within yourself that is like this thing is pure joy?
I don't think I have it often in the moment, but I think again, like Nani, it's retrospective. Like I can think back to recent moments. I was like, that was a good time. I had a good time. I had a great time doing that. And I try to honor those moments and like thank the person I'm with or, that ex- point out, put a pin in, that was a good time. Um, I, I worry that now I worry that I don't experience pure joy. So please excuse me while I have an existential crisis
I'm sorry, that was not the
about
intent
it.
here, but okay, yeah,
Ugh.
we'll give it a moment.
But I'm also currently still working on connecting to my body and feeling present in my body because I very much self-identify as a robot, which is kind of a disassociative thought process. So that and it's something very like a lot of Pisces are this way too. So I'm feeling very Piscean in the moment. Uh and so like that that part of Nani's experience was not something I could relate to yet because I am still working on that. I'm still on that path. Um, but my joy moments, even though I'm an introvert, tend to include other people because what I would classify as a personal singular joy moment feels like contentment when I'm by myself. So like now I have to redefine joy for myself, and I'll see you some time in the future about that. Cool. Cool, cool, cool. How about you?
So I didn't used to really acknowledge those moments or maybe even feel them. And then got on antidepressants. And I
Ooh.
remember actively the first moment where I like where it sort of the wave engulfed me of like this moment right this second is pure joy. And I don't mean like this sexual experience is orgasmic. That's not what I
Right.
mean. It was a moment of getting ice cream. It was not that. There might have been a
Yeah.
foodgasm, but it's not the same. I mean like realizing that this moment is perfect in the moment.
Mhm.
And that
Mm.
first moment, that the very first experience of that, maybe not in my life, but in recent history, like that very first one that I was like, I am actively aware of this thing, this wonderful thing that is happening to me as it's happening. I sort of took that moment to catalog it and to be like, this is what it should feel like in my brain and in my body and in my like rose colored glasses, which I'm clearly wearing in this moment. And so now I catch them more
Nice.
frequently because I did put a pin in it. I was like, this is what it feels like, and these should be cataloged and they matter.
Nice. Here, here. Bless pharmacology.
I mean, for me, that's right for me, and at this moment, that is the answer, but
Mhm.
that doesn't necessarily
Yeah.
have to be everyone's answer.
Absolutely. Absolutely not. Um, so as we've talked about it, Nani's inner voice and the negative outer voice and like all the stupid voices that a person listens to in their day-to-day life. How do you tell your inner voice to shut the fuck up and choose to listen to the positive inner voice? If you want to share. You do not no pressure there.
So I don't shut it up, and I don't,
Okay.
and neither does she. I don't think.
No, she
Uh,
tucks it aside. She's like,
right, but
"Go,
she
you go away now."
right. So I still hear what it has to say. I just
Mhm.
don't think that that's the truth or the only way, right? Like there are chances are my inner voice, there's like a practical one that doesn't care about my emotional well-being, and there's an emotional one that doesn't care about practicality. Case in point, Wanderlust, which is very impractical from a financial standpoint. But so I listen to that voice. I just don't necessarily take on the emotional labor of what that voice tells me.
Mhm. You don't believe
So
it.
I don't believe it. Right. Yeah. I'm like,
Mm.
yes, thank you. I should not buy a $30 ice cream while I am out and about. Noted. Right. It's a story from travel. there
Uh, but there's that exists?
that
I'm
exists.
having a $30 ice does it have gold shavings on it?
Probably yes.
Truffles.
I genu
Okay, alright.
I at that time I listened to the voice. So
I see. I see. Does it come in a fancy purse? Like, I'm still back on the $30 ice okay,
I
anyway,
mean, I can find this for you. Yes.
yeah, amazing, amazing. Like I said, I'm still trying to I think my voice is more insidious than I previously thought. When it's obvious, it's obvious. It's not subtle. But I think mine is definitely more subtle. And I need to be better about uh positively reinforcing, giving myself positive reinforcements. So this book has really worked in tandem with a couple of the other books, the self-help nonfiction books that I've read lately, Burnout and The Body's Not an Apology, about just like taking better care of myself inside and outside. And yeah, so I'm telling myself that good job, body. You did good today. Look at you. I like this part of you specifically today. And, I'm just trying to be better. This is a weird, hard conversation to have that I am just having these thoughts for the first time right now.
Well, thank you for
Cool.
bringing them with you. We're gonna give you a little bit of an emotional break. We're gonna take a break.
Please, please. Okay, we are going to take an
Goodbye.
intermission right here. When we come back, we're going to break down our favorite moment from the book.
And discuss our ratings and if this book made us want to get naked.
Please enjoy this message from one of our friends in the podcasting world.
Okay, and we're back.
Hello. I had 18 existential crises while we were on break, so that's where my head is at. I'm just
All
kidding.
right. Well, we are back and we're talking about It's Been a Pleasure, Noni Blake by Claire
Yep,
Christian.
yep, yep.
And we're
Whoop,
going
whoop,
to
whoop.
talk about our favorite and most compelling moments because it's given us existential
Yeah.
crises
Yep.
and has been the most wonderful. So for
Yeah.
me, actually, the I had to think long and hard about my favorite moment in this book because so much of this book is so good and
Yeah.
so the places that I wanted to be with Nani and then on my own without Nani. But I am a huge fan of a black moment in a romance novel that does not go the conventional way. And this book
Mhm.
has one of those. It does not go the conventional way. She
Yeah.
freaks out and he goes, "You can stop freaking out and just talk to me." And I was a puddle when I read that because that
Aw.
is how I want all confrontations to go. For one person to be like, "I'm extremely confrontational," and for the other person to be like, "I hear you and I validate your feelings, but also let's resolve it." Because
Yeah.
that's what adults do. And yeah, that's like, I
Yeah.
don't even have good words for it. Bo's resolution of the black moment, seconds after it occurred, genius. Just like, beautifulness.
Amazing. I concur in that my favorite moments were all of the conversations with Bo because he is very practical. He usually says the right things that Nani needs to hear. Like he was very in tune to how she thinks and how to like get her out of the negative thought zone and into just like experiencing and living and being present. And he very early on says, I went to a lot of therapy to be this good at it. And I'm still a work in progress. I just really connected with how witty and clever he was and how safe he generally made her feel. So, I don't know. I'm hot for Bo. It's fine.
There you go.
It's
I
there.
that's a
Yeah.
t-shirt. That's
Yeah.
merch that should have been coming out with this book. All
Yeah.
right. So hot take. Yay, nay. My hot take, by the way, is shut up, leave this moment, go get this book right this second,
My
and then cancel your plans.
right, and my hot take is don't leave yet. We're gonna keep yelling at you about how good this book is. So, take it or leave it. Choose one
Or
and
both,
or both and goodbye or stay.
or stay. All right.
Yeah.
Did this book make you want to get naked?
Absolutely. When Nani first took her Viking bow to bed, I immediately took my Viking to bed, and it was chef's kiss.
And it was chef's kiss.
That's the that was the weirdest way to describe that, you guys. I'm so sorry.
On the next episode, we will talk about how not to describe sex scenes. Uh,
No, it's definitely Viking Appreciation Society in this house.
Got it.
Let's just say that.
Okay, so the book on page 1 starts with a sex scene and the word fuck is in the first 10 words of the book. So in
Yeah.
case constant sexual prowess is not your bag, beware. Also,
Yep.
just pick up this book and then you're going to
Yep.
love all the sex. Yes, it
Yeah.
made me get naked. I actually found her experience with buying lingerie to be one of the sexiest things in the book because it's
Mhm.
just her and it's just lingerie, but it isn't just, and it's her sort of appreciation and discovery of her body, and then the validation of that both by Bo
Mhm.
and by her friend Lil, who's a photographer.
Mhm.
And like that whole experience,
And and the stranger selling her the
and the
lingerie.
stranger selling her
Like,
the lingerie. And so that was the one that I was like, I'm gonna go buy some lingerie. And just like have a moment to appreciate it. I mean, like in a specific, like lingerie for a lingerie's sake, not like I need
yeah,
to wear undergarments.
right.
Yes. So absolutely yes.
Yes. Amazing. It was like I thought this book was a very clever, um, framework structure for erotica, because that's what this book felt like to me, was erotica. So, and I will tell everyone, and I will proudly proclaim it in a positive way.
There you go. I mean, this book really made me evaluate the way that I identify and restrict pleasure for myself in terms of
Mm,
when I actively prevent myself from experiencing something really joyful because I think that it's
mm,
that my responsibilities would get in the way of that. In this book, and fiction is very infrequently that for me, the reminder of real life things. But this book really reminded me that you can have pleasure and have joy and say yes to your needs at the same time as taking care of other people's needs. And in fact, when you are in your own good headspace,
yeah,
you're a better person to take care of others. So to really think
yeah,
about what my boundaries for myself are and why they exist
mm,
and whether or not they should be reshaped to something more positive. So a little bit, yeah, a whole lot of self discovery and self journeying
yeah,
in this book, which
yeah,
is everything, truly.
yeah. I think perfect beach read.
Well, yes. Also, yes, basically perfect anywhere
I don't
read.
know.
So
Perfect anywhere, read it. Highly recommend reading naked with
there you
this
go.
one.
Highly recommend reading naked. True that. True
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
I will second that. All right. Excellent. Well, yeah, peace
yeah.
indeed. Don't think I've ever said that in my life. That felt so weird. So
But
sorry.
embrace it. Embrace the pleasure of it.
Yes, yes. I mean, I do
Peace
love my
indeed.
awkward all the time, so it's
Oh,
totally
all
totally
the
great.
time.
All right. We will see you next time for a mini-sode.
Goodbye. So are you, dear audience human, gonna pick up this book now that you've heard our review? Let us know in the comments. Have a suggestion for another review? Slide on into our DMs.
If you like this adventure in books or updates on our upcoming projects, please follow, like, save, subscribe, rate, review us on Instagram at l.skyford, on Twitch at lskyford, and on Twitter at skyfordl. Phew. I'm Sky.
And I'm Ford. That's it for this episode. We will see you next time on Booklandia, where every book is a whole world to explore. And we're out.